Hello and welcome into your NFL Pregame Show. I am Rob Trigilio. That big, beautiful, bald head you're staring at, that's David Grogan. What's up, man? How you doing?
Living the dream, ready for some week 4.
You know what's amazing about it is we are now a month into the season, and we have all only been on the show one time.
Together, all three of us, yeah. No. It's all good.
My man out sick, woke up this morning feeling bad. We don't force people to do stuff when they're feeling shitty. You know what I mean?
And you gotta wonder if yesterday's college football had anything to do with it.
No, his guys won. Michigan won. You think a little brown bottle sickness? Is that what you're concerned about?
I'm not concerned about it. I don't get hungover.
I mean, I've been there, but shut up. I don't get hungover. What? Go ahead. What?
You know better than most. Are you drinking Kool-Aid or is that a purple cup?
No, it's a cup that changes color with the temperature of the item. And so it's purple when it's cold. You see how it's yeah. Neat little thing the Rockies gave away.
I was honestly hoping for Kool-Aid.
Nope. This is my Kool-Aid right here. I've got some of that too for your good morning. How you doing? But
there you go.
No grape Kool-Aid this morning. Okay. So I went and looked at the lines just overall for the first time yesterday. What a week. It is not a week where I feel like there is a single line on there that I love. Which means one of two things.
San Francisco, New England and San Francisco plus 10. I know your rule.
I will absolutely follow my rule. And it was 10.5, I believe. If it got bet down to 10, I'm going to be disappointed. But
I looked a while ago, and then I looked again late last night.
But I'm not sure. Maybe it got bet down to 10. But there was in terms of like lines that I love. Every week I look on there and like one or two will pop out. Now listen, that don't mean shit. I did the thing for a couple years where I only bet on the lines that I love because I said to myself, man, when you win, you say to yourself, man, I knew this one, blah, blah, blah. You don't talk about the losses in the same way.
What losses? And
when I only was betting the ones that I picked out that I loved, my record just right into the shitter. Yeah, it was awful. So it's kind of interesting to me because I feel like the diversity of picks, the NFL being so unpredictable, makes it so that the diversity of picks helps you out more with your record than anything else. So before we jump into the games, and we'll go down, we'll hit every NFL game today. David and I, we won't talk about the guy who's not here, but David and I bet every single game as we talk about them. So we have a full slate of games. We'll tell you our thoughts on each of them. Of course, if you have questions on your fantasy teams, daily fantasy, survivor picks, anything like that, throw them in the chat, man. We are happy to talk about anything. This is your NFL pregame show. So we are happy to discuss even stardom, sit-em type stuff. Feel free to throw that in the chat and we'll be happy to talk with you about it. But I just wondered when you looked at the lines earlier, David, was there any single particular game that caught your eye and you're like, ooh, I love that line?
So coming out of the gates, obviously as a Bills fan, I saw Baltimore minus 2.5 on whatever that was, Tuesday of this week. And I went, I feel pretty good about Buffalo. 2.5 is not great.
Did I ruin you?
You did. I hate you. I hate you for that. New England at San Francisco. San Francisco's getting a couple players back from injury. New England's not a great team, but they've played with some heart. A 10-point favorite for San Francisco that's tough to bet on because in this league, most games are less than a score. So we'll see. Jacksonville at Houston. Houston -6. Maybe getting Joe Mixon back. That's one where you go, Jacksonville.
I didn't ask you, who are you, Russell Wilson? I didn't ask you to run down the full lineup. I asked you what you love, dog. Tell me what you love.
I don't love
anything. We're going to go down the whole lineup. Tell me what you love.
I love the Dallas -4.5 when I bet it because they won by 5.
Oh, yeah.
I'll take it.
That's funny because that morning I put in a bet on the Giants +5.5. And look at you changing the settings. Hey, buddy. I bet Giants +5.5, and I felt like I needed, like when I was talking to myself about the bet, I'm like, I think 5.5 is probably as low as I would go. Anything less than that, I'd probably bet Cowboys. And it's amazing how Vegas delivers that line so frequently.
Nailed it.
I mean, it's incredible. So, I mean, when Aubrey's trotting out there for that kick, I'm like, I'm dead. Forget it. It's over for me.
Well, I was more worried after he missed the kick. I was like, oh, great. For the first time in forever, the Giants are going to march down this field and kick a field goal or score a touchdown and win and absolutely kill my Thursday night vibe. Luckily, that didn't happen, but that was an interesting game, and I didn't really expect that kind of fight out of the Giants. But
well, hold on. It was not an interesting game. It was actually quite a boring game. But it was an NFL football game.
One, it's an NFL football game on a slow Thursday night. Two, there were a bunch of former Bills playing. Good to see Motor Singletary out there, still doing his thing, and Brian Dable looking like a svelte human being compared to where he was. So
he lost a bunch of weight, man. Good for him. Him and his wife. Have you seen, like, they did a thing on it on Hard Knocks. They both like committed to it and lost a bunch of weight. So good for them.
Nice. Good for them.
Yeah, same. I had the same feelings about Motor. I mean, obviously Bills, right? And it was actually interesting because in the offseason Hard Knocks, when they were talking running back, I think they were silly for letting Saquon go. But when they were talking about it, and like to hear the trust that Dave's had in Motor, right? Like he's just like, that's my guy, 100%. If we can't get Barkley, $4 million for Devin, 1,000 times out of 1,000. And so it was just kind of cool to see that bond that was forged with our team. Because I do like Motor. You know what I mean? I think he's a real solid NFL back. And I wouldn't have minded if he stayed in Buffalo, but like, you just can't afford to pay a little bit extra for a guy who's just real solid with the kind of salary cap restrictions the Bills had over the past couple of years. So, but it's nice to see him getting featured touches in Houston and now in New York. So, yeah, an interesting Thursday night. There's an interesting Sunday night game this week. An interesting Thursday night game. I don't know if it was good, but it was interesting. All right, let's start running down the league here. It's interesting. I haven't looked all like compared to say what the game of the morning is, but I kind of feel like it's this one. It's the one that they're highlighting. So we'll kick off with it. Saints and Falcons, NFC South matchup. And I don't know. I mean, you travel a lot, so this is more like the royal you. I don't know if you've been down to the South when this game was going on, but it's a real rivalry. And it's interesting because I think the rest of the NFL doesn't view it that way. When you ask about rivalries in the NFL, people bring up like Giants, Cowboys. People bring up Bears, Vikings too. But I was going to say Bears, Packers. Raiders, Broncos. Those are the types of matchups that they mention, and they never mention this game. These cities freaking hate each other. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, there's some animosity there, and there's a history between these two teams. So it's usually good football when, and especially how they've played so far this year. I think Atlanta's on the come up. New Orleans is leveling off after those amazing first 2 weeks. I know Chris Olave was game time decision with a hamstring. Based on a report from CBS Sports, it looks like he is expected to play today.
Tampa Bay might have something to say about it. Don't get me wrong. But this to me feels like the two teams that'll decide the division.
Yeah.
I was not big on the Saints to come into the year. I did say, I think in our preview episode, listen, the rest of the AFC South is so bad that they can win it. I just thought Atlanta would put it together maybe a little bit quicker than they have. Now, you see, it's kind of like a engine sputtering. It looks like a jet engine sputtering. Every once in a while, you see something from the Falcons, and you're like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. I get it.
Right.
But they haven't really put it together, even for a full game, much less, a half, a quarter, something like that. And in their win, they got lucky. You get lucky that Saquon Barkley drops that ball, and then they can drive down the field and win the game. The Saints have been much more consistent throughout the start of the season. And so I'm going to take them in the 2.5 points. The 2.5 points means almost nothing to me. Very rarely does something get decided like that by inside of a field goal, but it does happen. So I'm going to take the 2.5 points, but I would even bet money line. So if you're feeling confident on Saints, I would go money line. But what are your thoughts on it?
My only concern is I'm looking at the Saints injury report, and Demario Davis, the linebacker, has a hamstring. He's out. Alvin Kamara is questionable. Chris Olave is a game time, but likely playing. Cesar Ruiz, the guard, is out. A.T. Perry, not a huge piece of their offense, is out. There's just some injuries here that concern me. But I actually bet this last night and had a 3-point for Atlanta. So I took New Orleans at +3. And I feel okay about it.
And you could certainly buy it up. I mean, it's -105 to get them at +2.5. So if you went into the game and bet an alternate spread, you'd probably be paying -120, maybe -125 to get your extra half point, which is high but not unreasonable if you do want the full field goal. But like I said, I'm confident enough that I would even go and bet the money line, which is +120 right now. So, I'll take the 2.5 points. I don't need them. But it's an interesting line right now to me if you're looking to bet it. Again, remember, if you got fantasy questions, anything like that, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will talk about them. Next, we've got the LA Rams flying east kind of to play the Chicago Bears. It's an interesting one because it is a 12 o'clock start time in Chicago. But that doesn't matter for the Rams' bodies, right? Like, it's still going to feel like a 9 a.m. start to them. Yeah. So, an interesting dynamic there. Rams getting 3 points on the road. Really a very lucky win by them last week. I watched almost that entire game in a bar full of 49er fans, and they were talking smack the whole time. I mean, there was one Rams fan and they were after him. And by the end of it, they got what was coming to them. But at no point did I feel like the Rams were the better team. I just felt like they got luckier. And I mean, the margins in the NFL are so that that's how it is sometimes.
Have the Bears done anything to make you feel like they can win a football game?
Yeah. Play defense. People forget it's not all about Caleb Williams. How did they win the first week? Their defense was incredible. Now
I
they were
just
playing the Tennessee Titans, but
right,
listen, the Rams roster isn't much better.
especially with
And
Cooper Kupp out and
Puka Nakua,
Puka Nakua.
and who's their tight end who I think is out too, and I can't remember his name.
Oh,
But
yeah,
my only point being,
Davis.
if you look at it and you want to say who's got the better quarterback, LA. Who's got the better coach, LA. So if you want to look at it and say that, I'm not going to slight you for it. I just, for some reason, feel like the Bears are going to figure it out today. I don't know why. I'm not overly confident in this, but I will take the Bears at home -3 points.
I'm gonna go Rams +3. I think the Rams defense is going to do just enough to scare Caleb Williams into making more mistakes. And I think they're going to capitalize on it. I can't trust Chicago's offense. I like their defense, but their offense hasn't put it all together yet. Once they do, they could be really good. I don't feel that yet. I haven't seen it yet, and I don't love it. So I'm going to go with the Rams +3.
Can we have a conversation about Tre'Davious White real quick, by the way?
Yeah.
It's so sad to see him getting absolutely torched.
The game week 1, watching him get torched in prime time, and then having him on the sideline looking broken and sad.
That's the thing. It's the look on his face when they show him. Because the dude's an all-pro corner. And it's just like maybe it's a 2-year thing where you say like he really needed 2 years to come back from the latest injury, or maybe he's just like those legs only have so many injuries in them. You know what I mean? Like, oh God, it kills me because and here's the other thing that kills me about it. The dude is so smart, and forgive us for a little tangent on an X-Bill here, but I do love the man. The dude is so smart on the back end that I really thought as he got through his prime athletically that he would be one of the guys who transitions to safety and extends his career another 4 or 5 years. And I don't even know if he's got that in him right now. I don't know if he's got the legs for it.
Back-to-back season-ending injuries to the legs, backpedaling, pushing off, cutting, shadowing receivers. That's a lot to overcome for a corner. He's not as young as he used to be.
That's the understatement of the century.
And the problem is, not only is he chronologically not as young as he used to be, physically he's older than he should be with the injuries. So that's a sad day. I hate seeing it.
It's tough to watch. I really have a hard time with it.
Love Trey, but it's a rough one. Now, as far as morning games, this next game is one that I'm pretty excited about.
This might be the most interesting game. It might not be the game of the morning, but it might be the most interesting game of the morning. Right. Go ahead. Do the intro. Do you have the intro in it? Can you do the quick recap of the game and give me a little oomph here? Let's see what you got.
So you've got Minnesota 3-0, one of the only undefeated teams outside of Seattle in the NFC. And you've got an upstart Green Bay team with their starting quarterback back in the lineup after an MCL sprain in Sao Paulo, Brazil in week 1. Now, my question is, would you ride the hot hand because you've gotten 2 wins out of Malik Willis and give him 1 more week to rest that knee? If he gets injured this game, the answer should have been yes. If he comes out and plays really well, then coaches made all the right decisions and it's good. With a 3-point spread as of last night, Minnesota's playing as well as anybody, and they've got one of the most dynamic receivers in the league. Now, it's in Green Bay. Green Bay's a tough place to play. Minnesota and Green Bay, good rivalry. Not one of the premier rivalries, I would say, and especially not in the last few years. But this is a game that if you can knock off Minnesota, that division looks a lot more enticing for Green Bay fans. But for me, Minnesota's playing as good a football as we've seen them play in a little while. So haven't seen the injury report for this game, but I'd be interested to hear your thoughts.
So this game comes down to two questions for me. One, are they rushing Jordan Love back? And to your point, if they are, why? Because Malik Willis has looked fine. You know what I mean? Borderline good. Borderline good. So why would you rush Jordan Love back from the MCL sprain? It feels a little quick to me. Remember, and I say this to people
3 weeks.
Yeah. A sprain is a tear. We assign different names to them based on the severity, and I think a lot of people forget that. But a sprain is a tear, just a little one, but it is. And so, to say, "Oh, he's back. He's 2 weeks. He's ready to go." I mean, it feels like they're kind of rushing him specifically for this game. Mental health guy, what's up? Thanks for jumping in the chat. He says, if Minnesota's defense continues the way they have been, Flores is getting another head coaching job. That's really interesting with all this stuff that came out about his relationship with Tua. I think there's some – it's not even to say that I feel like he was over the top, but I have talked to people who have gone through that kind of coaching before and said it does really affect you. And that's kind of what Tua was saying. And so for him to get another head coaching job, I personally feel like it's going to take a little bit of growth and development on Flores' part, because he's going to have to find a way to coach and establish relationships that doesn't include negging. You know what I mean? And so his schemes are great. His defenses were always great in Miami. I mean, he took that team from, what was it, David? They were like 0-13 or something that year before they hired him, and they ended up winning like 2 of their last 3 or something like that. I mean, they were terrible the year before.
They showed out, right.
They were terrible the year before he got there, and turned them around into a consistent team with the help of Ryan Fitzpatrick, and in turn to Tonga Vailoa. And so I think he's a great coach. I think he's a good head coach. I just think he's got to find a way to have a better relationship with his players if he's going to be a head coach. What do you think, David?
You also got to look at where would he get a head coaching job? Carolina, because they're probably going to need a coach soon. Jacksonville?
Carolina's got to get off the carousel, man. They got to stick with Dave Canales for a little bit. They have to. They have fired coaches at an incredible clip. They have to keep Dave Canales.
Yeah, not great. But getting back to this Packers Vikings game, on the Packers injury report, limited participation, Jair Alexander with a quad for a cornerback, pushing off with that leg. That's tough. Defensive tackle Kenny Clark, Jordan Love obviously with the knee, tight end Luke Musgrave, Jaden Reed, the receiver who looked really good early in the season, Devontae Wyatt, Carrington Valentine, the cornerback. That's a good amount of injuries. And then on the Vikings, it's really Christian Darrisaw, their left tackle, Ivan Pace at linebacker, Jordan Addison's limited, Garrett Bradbury is limited. Not huge issues here. What are you thinking for this game? What's your heart telling you? What's your brain telling you?
So as I was going through, the two things that I want to point out that I think are the factors for this game is, one, Jordan Love, like we talked about, are they rushing him back? The other thing for me is we have to have a real discussion about what the Vikings really are. And I think it's apt the question that Mental Health Guy asked, because I think it's a team that's built a lot more like the Steelers than people want to give it credit for.
100%.
And so people have been talking about, Sam Darnold, and he's playing so good and blah, blah, blah. And I think the conversation is more how easy they're making the game for him. And I like Sam Darnold a lot, but I just feel like it's been slightly above average quarterback play. I don't feel like he's been blowing the doors off. And I feel like this Packers team is actually pretty good. It's an incredible matchup to me. And when I find myself knocking at the door like that, where it's like I could see either team winning this game, it's pretty impressive. When I'm getting a full score on one side of it, you bet the number, not the team, right? So I'll take the 3 points for Minnesota, being that it's a full field goal. But I could see either team winning this game, absolutely no problem.
Yeah, this was the toughest for me because it's in Green Bay, and you go, that's pretty good. I do worry they're rushing Jordan Love back. Now, the nice part is you have a quarterback who's played the last 2 weeks and change in Malik Willis. So even if Jordan Love goes, ooh, something doesn't feel right, and comes out, you got somebody to step in. I just
Hard
think
though
Minnesota,
if you don't have the practice time. It's tough.
exactly. And for me, I think mentally there's some things when you are injured, you get a little hesitant. You worry about people around your feet. You're not going to scramble as much. So I honestly, I'm going to take Minnesota at -3. I think they're rushing him back in Green Bay. And
Minnesota
I think,
+3. Minnesota's getting 3 points.
oh,
So
yeah,
Minnesota +3.
+3. Yeah.
Okay. Just making sure you're on the right side of that there.
So,
all right. Both on the Vikings +3. I guess we're both show me state with our man Jordan Love there. All right, next one is Steelers and Colts. Another interesting game, and another game that involves a 3-0 team that nobody really expected to be 3-0. In fact, I'd say there's 3 real surprises of the 5 undefeated teams remaining. This game, I haven't broken down film of Anthony Richardson, but what I hear from people that I trust that break down film is that it's real bad.
real bad.
It's real bad. Now, just watching the broadcast angle, I can tell you it's not pretty. But, I don't want to say anything definitively without the all 22. He's a young kid. He's going to struggle. It's interesting, but this isn't necessarily a defense that you want to struggle against. TJ Watt is going to eat you alive if you do.
The only good thing I'm seeing, if you're a fan of Indy or you're hoping Indy pulls this out, is for the Steelers, Jalen Warren, running back, out. Alex Highsmith, linebacker, out. Isaac Seumalo, Malu, Jesus. Their guard is out with a pec strain. TJ Watt's fine. He had a rest day this week, but you've got a little bit of injury on that defense, and their second running back is injured. So is this one they could sneak and you just chip and double team the hell out of Watt? Not that that matters. He's still gonna make your life hell. Maybe. I just don't see Indy doing anything worthwhile. Kenny Moore's out, Kwity Paye's out, and they've got 4 on the questionable list, all on the defense. So not for me. I can't trust Indy yet. Pittsburgh, while I don't think they're dominant, has earned their way with that defense. The offense has been just good enough. The fact that they still have Russell Wilson under contract is hilarious to me when they could.
The Broncos are paying him to be a Steeler. You know what I mean? So, here's my question for you: is how much do you trust Justin Fields
to get you some sneaky first downs and keep you on the field? I trust him.
Really, honestly, the question is how much do you trust him to win a game? And he's won 3 of them. You know what I mean? Now, yes, there's context there, right? Because he's got to win a game for the Steelers, which could mean he's got to score 16 points. You know what I mean? It's not hard to do.
Which would be a lot for the Steelers. This season, obviously their offense isn't what Steelers fans hoped it would be, but Najee Harris looks pretty good. He's been running pretty hard. They've got some decent receiver talent. They've got some tight end talent. Their offensive line scares me a little bit, but I honestly think Justin Fields will give you just enough Again, not a huge spread here. I don't see Indy doing enough offensively or defensively to win this game. And against a really tough Pittsburgh D, I'm going to take Pittsburgh.
I hate this because our picks are lining up, so I might change this one.
If,
Because I was going to be on the Steelers. I was going to say the fairy tale is going to end. I mean, it's gonna strike midnight at some point. I've said that about teams before, and it's never happened. But it's going to hit midnight at some point. A great example of that is a past Steeler team that made it all the way to the playoffs with a 14-3 record, I think it was, before getting blasted by the Browns in the divisional round. And all year I said at some point the clock's going to strike midnight, and it took all the way until the playoffs before it happens. I do think it happens to this Steeler team sooner than that. But do I want to be different from you so much that I want to bet Anthony Richardson as a home dog? No, I'll take the Steelers.
do it, you coward. Do it.
I really want to. It's the internal, and because I know that every week you have one or two that you could go either way on, and then you're watching the outcomes and you're like, damn it, why didn't I just do it?
I'll make a note to circle back on that one later tonight when we watch the Bills play.
Yeah.
And see how that went when Indy wins by 2 touchdowns.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be the one that we're looking at, and I'm going to be like, damn it. All right. Broncos headed to New York. The interesting thing about this, they never came back to Denver. They were on the East Coast to play Tampa Bay. They stayed on the East Coast at the Greenbrier. Now they're headed up to play the Jets. Catching 8 points.
8 points. That's a lot.
Points is a lot versus a New York Jets team that, let's be honest, they haven't played real good competition. They just haven't. And I don't even know what you're going to know about them after this week.
Not much.
Which is interesting to me. I think the Broncos are playing better. And Sean Payton has shown the ability to coach these teams into teams. And even last year with the Broncos, everybody thinks about the Broncos being awful. They remember the 70 points versus Miami. They remember them starting 1-5 or whatever. They ended with 8 wins. I mean, they were in the playoff hunt at the very end of it, and everybody forgets that. So it'll be interesting to see if he can coach this team to a similar amount of success. Broncos 1-2 catching 8 points at the Meadowlands. What are you thinking, David?
8 points is a lot. Denver was smart. They stayed on the East Coast, so the time isn't going to be an issue. I know you talk a lot about West coming east for an early game. The Jets haven't looked as good as their record and some of their wins might tell you. Obviously, we talk about Rodgers. Has some vintage Rodgers moments. He's laced some dimes down the middle of the field and some to the corners. He's making good decisions. He's not making a lot of bad decisions, which is the best you can say about Jets quarterback play in the last several years. So I think the Jets will still win, but 8 points isn't it, dog? So I'm going to take Denver +8. I could even be convinced that Denver might win this game, but I'm not gonna tempt the fates.
Don't lie to me. They convinced me that the Broncos can win this game.
I think the offensive line for the Jets is not great. I think the Broncos are getting a little bit healthier, still not perfectly healthy, but they also have an all-star cornerback who doesn't have to hold on every snap. And I think eventually,
shots fired there.
That's definitely shots fired. And it's not just like Sauce Gardner. Like I like he's kind of cocky. He's a cornerback, so obviously you got to be. But when you watch the games, I actually watch every game each week on the kind of condensed replay on NFL, and you just follow along with him. And his hands are all over the receivers, and you think that eventually that has to start getting called. It hasn't yet, but
it's been 3 years. It's not going to.
Not great. But I definitely don't love the Jets at -8. I don't love that at all. Again, I could make an argument that Denver might actually put it together and play some really good football like they did last week. This may not be the week for that. So I'm going to take Denver +8.
I'm going to lay the 8. Listen, I can be convinced that the Broncos are better than people think. And I do think as we go through the rest of the season, they might be one of those value teams that you start getting these type of spreads and saying, I'll take the 8 points. I'm hesitant to do it this time. Part of the reason is their offensive line is beat up. They also just lost Alex Singleton to an ACL injury.
Yeah.
The Jets have 2 good running backs. They've got a great defensive front. And so when you talk about those 2 factors, the Jets are going to have a huge advantage in that area. I got a text from my buddy the other day who's like, who should I bet as a touchdown scorer in that Broncos game? And I'm like, whoever the tight end is for the Jets. And I can go look it up. But they don't have anybody that can cover the middle of the field. And so, yeah, Surtain can shut down the outside. You can even put him on Garrett Wilson and let him travel with him. And it's probably not going to be a great week for him. But Jets have other options. And like you said, their O-line is playing better. I think O-lines generally play better when you let them run the ball. And what is his first name? It just left my head. Allen and Breece Hall, they're good running backs, man. They are really good. Thank you, Braylon. Braylon Allen and Breece Hall, they're good running backs, man. And so if you let that offensive line get downhill a little bit and start grading people, and then all of a sudden, Aaron Rodgers has to make 2 or 3 good throws, I think you're in a good spot there if you're the Jets. So I'm going to lay the 8 points. The score effects on this kind of say like 24-25 to like 15-16. And I do feel like that's going to be right in the ballpark of where it is. It'll be a real close cover if they do it, but I think they can.
Tyler Conklin and Jeremy Ruckert are the 2 tight ends for the Jets. That being said, Morgan Moses, the Jets' right offensive tackle, is out today. So then you're putting Olu Fashanu, who has played pretty terribly, back out there.
Yeah, but has played a few times, I think. So, at least has some snaps under his belt. So don't forget, if you have fantasy questions, start them, sit them, survivor pool picks, daily fantasy. You want to talk about touchdown scores, over-unders, whatever else, feel free to throw it in the chat. We would be happy to talk a little bit about it. If you just want to tell David he's a piece of shit, you can do that right in the comments too. That's also totally fun.
I'm here for it.
By the way, do you have like anything that you drink during this? I don't think I've seen you drink anything. Is that what you keep doing when you disappear? Oh, you got water. Okay. What time did you wake up this morning?
4:45.
You're a piece of shit. I mean, really. This dude wakes up so early, and I always think to myself when I roll over on Sunday mornings and begrudgingly get out of bed to take a shower so I'm like awake for this. I always think to myself, like, that fucker has been up for like 3 hours. How do you live like that? I don't even know. Okay. Eagles, Buccaneers, playoff rematch from last year, which says a lot about the NFC. Eagles minus a point in Tampa Bay. Both teams 2-1 right now. Bucks lost to that Bronco team that we just spent a bunch of time talking about. And the Eagles, there are times they look like world beaters from a couple years ago. And then there are times that they look like the team that lost 6 games in a row
to end the season.
To end the season. Store Show, what's up, dog? Yeah, I mean, again, I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning to do this podcast against my will too. So I feel you, dog. But yeah, so listen, it's an interesting matchup between these 2 teams because even last year in the playoffs, you felt like the Eagles had more talent on paper. If you're just doing the lineups, right? If you're just reading the scorecard, you're like, oh, all right, well, the Eagles are going to walk with this one. And
But then you actually have to play the game.
then you play the game, and somehow the Bucks are better than them. So your thoughts on a hot 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock Eastern start, and undoubtedly the Eagles having to wear what's that color called? Emerald green? No, darker. Hunter green
Forest
in
Hunter
Tampa
Green.
Bay. Oh yeah, Tampa Bay is definitely wearing white today at for a 1 o'clock start in Tampa Bay, all humid and hot, no doubt about it. I think the hurricane has completely blown out of there, right? So I think they're no doubt people still probably stuck in houses or displaced or whatever happened from the hurricane. Of course, our thoughts and prayers go out to them. And we say that because there's not really much else we can do. So they get thoughts and prayers, even though David and I don't really pray. I mean, we could pray to something. Praying isn't, exclusive to, we could pray to the spaghetti god. What's the spaghetti god? Do you remember that thing?
Flying spaghetti monster. Come on.
We could pray to the flying spaghetti monster for him. No, but we are, I mean, obviously thinking about those people in Tampa Bay affected by the hurricane. But if they're going to play a football game down there, it's going to be hot and humid. You know what I mean? So what are your thoughts, David?
Lots of injuries in this one. Tristan Wirfs out. Antoine Winfield Jr. was just ruled out. Vita Vea questionable. Kalijah Cansey questionable. Jalen McMillan questionable. And then on the Eagles, did you know Mekhi Becton was playing for the Eagles?
I did, yeah. I did.
Completely forgot about him as a human being. But Landon Dickerson, their guard, is
line. I don't know that I'd want him starting anywhere, but
No. Landon Dickerson, the guard for the Eagles, is questionable. Lane Johnson, the tackle for the Eagles, questionable with a concussion. Darius Slay, questionable. Devontae Smith, no, he's out now. So that's a lot of injuries. I think the Eagles got the worst of it. I think Vita Vea will wind up playing in this game. I'm actually going to take the Bucks. I don't like either pick here. There's reasons to believe in both teams and reasons to go absolutely not for both of these teams. Philadelphia,
give me one of each then. Give me one. You said you're picking the Bucks?
Yeah.
Give me one reason to say yes to the Bucks and one reason to say no to the Eagles.
Injuries look like they're ravaging the Eagles. Bucks have Baker, who can play well, and I think he got embarrassed last week losing to Denver, especially when you'd like to think those teams, when matched up, Tampa Bay should be able to win. They had a lot more injuries last week, so they're getting a little healthier. So Tampa Bay, I'm taking the quarterback, and the reason I wouldn't pick Philly is lots of injuries, and they don't seem to reach their potential. If Vita Vea is playing, I like stopping the run a little bit better, but we'll see if that's that game time decision if he actually winds up playing.
I'm going to take the Eagles, and I think my main thought behind it is Saquon Barkley is absolutely that dude. If you have watched their games the first 3 weeks, and don't get me wrong, we all knew it. It's not like it's a surprise, but there's just a little bit something extra for him back in his home state, back where he played college ball. It feels like it's a little bit personal, like he wants to prove something. Maybe it's to the people of Pennsylvania, maybe it's to the New York Giants, maybe it's to the NFL, maybe it's to himself. I don't know. But he's been incredible. The drop notwithstanding, which, by the way, I like that call.
Yeah. No argument with the call.
Yeah. So it just goes to show you how reliant, dependent, heavy they've been on him, which is incredible because what it does is it has the Dallas Goedert effect of, if you game plan to stop Saquon Barkley, by all means, go ahead. Dallas Goedert is going to have 10 catches at a 15-yard clip and have 150 yards receiving on the day. Or Devonta Smith or Antonio Brown. Why, help me. AJ Brown. I mean, but that's my point. Even Antonio Brown could come in and have a 100-yard receiving day if you're focused on stopping Saquon Barkley. So that is what I've loved about this team. I think if they keep that mindset throughout the year of we're going to feed Barkley, even if he's, even if you're scheming to stop him, and we'll find our other guys in the process. If they keep that mindset throughout the year, I think they're going to have a really solid year. And I don't think Tampa has the horses to run with them if they do something like that. So give me the Eagles minus a point, even though they're going to be wearing their hunter green in a crazy hot, humid Tampa Bay post-hurricane. All right.
I'm excited to get spicy on this next one.
Yeah, two teams that need this game pretty bad. One of them can crawl back into things. The Carolina Panthers, with a win last week, they're at least live. Do they have a great
Red
shot?
Rifle.
No, but you get a win and you crawl back to 2-2. If I was to tell you that you would be playing an 0-3 team and you can get a win to crawl back to 2-2, you would feel great as a Panthers fan. Now, then if I told you that it was because Bryce Young got benched, you'd probably feel less great. But they do have at least a shot. That 0-3 team is the Cincinnati Bengals, and that's incredible to me.
Hard to believe.
Bengals team, I do not think they are a bad team, but they just keep pooping right down their leg. It's amazing to me. And if you go back and watch, like that Patriots game, it's a forced fumble on the goal line early in the game. It's Gesicki barely not catching that ball in the corner of the end.
Punt.
It's right. There's just crazy things happening that is making this team lose games. We didn't watch that Commanders Bengals game closely, but it was touchdown after touchdown, and it just doesn't feel like the Bengals are great, but it also doesn't feel like they're terrible, yet here they are 0-3, David, and needing a win against the Panthers if they really want to talk about having any hope this season.
0-4. So right now, I think they said, 0-4, you've got one out of, I think, 75 or 80 teams since 2000 has made the playoffs at 0-4. You can't afford to drop this game. But I'm looking at this Cincinnati injury report, and I know Carolina would like to run the ball a little bit. And if I'm looking at the injury report, I'm seeing names like B.J. Hill, their giant defensive tackle, as doubtful, and Sheldon Rankins, their other giant tackle, as out. And Chris Jenkins has a thumb injury, so their entire defensive front in the middle is injured or out. So now that 4.5 points looks pretty tempting. Carolina came back. They got a little bit of juice last week. Andy Dalton, who as a Bills fan, again, holds a special place in my heart. And as a fellow Ginge, seeing him succeed last week was good.
Stop it. It's embarrassing. You're embarrassing yourself right now.
I've got Cincinnati going to 0-4 and Carolina coming out like the Undertaker from the casket and, one last gasp. Now, do I think they're going to do anything else with the rest of the season? Probably not. But I've actually got Cincinnati. They may even pull this game out, but I'm going to take Carolina plus 4.5.
You're embarrassing yourself. Nobody likes gingers. You just picked Carolina. I just listened to you right now.
So you're picking Cincy?
Yeah, I'm going to take Cincy. I'm going to lay the 4.5. I think the Panthers are going to annoyingly. So here's the thing. If I'm David Tepper and I'm the coaches, the coaches are saying, hey man, we're here to win games. That's what we're here to do. Totally get that. players, right? You don't want to lose them early in the season. I understand you making the change when you're 0-2, switch quarterbacks early, see if you can get some life. Okay, great. The Panthers are in real danger of annoyingly winning 7 games and taking them right back out of position to draft another quarterback, which is
Correct.
clearly what they need to do. And so you do it early and you see if you can catch fire and maybe make it an NFC wildcard playoff run. It's not crazy in the NFC to think that that's possible. It's also not likely.
Right.
And so if I was Tepper or Canales, I'd be like, I'm putting Bryce Young back in. I'm putting Bryce Young back in. And either we're going to have our number 1 overall pick turn into a dude, or I'm going to lose 14 games this year and I'm going to end up with Shedeur Sanders quarterbacking my team next year, or Carson Beck quarterbacking my team next year. Because you're in real danger of getting yourself into quarterback purgatory here.
Right in the middle, where the Bills were for so long, where you go, you're not terrible, but you're also not good. And you're never going to be so bad that you get a top 5 pick, but you're also never going to be so bad that, you have picks that are worth it. So you're missing out on premier talent.
And
they don't draft well.
You traded up to get Bryce Young and you gave up a first-round pick for it, and look what happened, right? So when you get desperate and you start clawing at it rather than just sucking and being at the bottom, it can really cost your team. It really can. And so I think the Bengals get a win here. I don't think they're actually a bad team. I don't think they're a great team. I would not call them a Super Bowl contender. I think their defense has really shown that they are not up for the task. That being said, I think they're still a playoff team, and I think they're still somebody to be feared in the playoffs. And I think they would get a win here and get right. Although I will say, and painful that I have to give Barstool credit, but on Barstool, they were talking, and somebody went through and figured out that even if Cincinnati wins out, you can design it so that they don't make the playoffs. You can make them go 14-3 and still miss the playoffs. Now, obviously, that won't happen in either sense, but I just thought that was funny.
What happens? What happens if Cincinnati Bengals drop this game and go 0-4?
So did you see Joe Burrow walking into the office
with his frosted tips?
Hey man, everything that's old is new again. Give me those 90s, 2000s frosted tips. Did you see him walking into the coach's office after the game last week?
No.
So there's video, like paparazzi style. It was like one of the team reporters, but like it looks like, TMZ video or whatever of him. And instead of walking into the locker room in full uniform immediately after the game, him, Zach Taylor, the head coach, and Lou Amaruno, I think his name is, defensive coordinator, all walk into the coach's office's locker room instead of him going into the team locker room. And some people are like, ooh, what does it mean? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, it means they just lost 3 games in a fucking row and they want to have some damn words about it. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it means.
I mean, you can't have star receivers, star quarterback, solid defense, pay people, kind of market contracts, and then come out and shit the bed so hard. And I know against Kansas City, they're like, oh, if that pass interference and Butker doesn't make that kick, we would have won that game. And again, the game against New England where everything that possibly could have gone wrong, the fumble, the muffed punt to give the Patriots the ball on like the 15 or whatever, and then Gesicki not catching that touchdown pass because it bobbled a little bit. Everything that's gone wrong sucks for them. So I think you're right. They should get a bounce back at some point. Regression to the mean says it can't always be fucking terrible. But if they go to 0-4, you got to look at your team, your franchise, who you're paying and who you're going to pay. And you might have to make some changes here.
Well, and that's the thing. You asked what happens if they lose this game. Fire and brimstone, I think, is what happens if they lose this game.
Agreed.
You have given away 2 games to teams that we don't think are very good. You lost to the Chiefs. I mean, you played a great game. It happened. Not a big deal. But losing to the Patriots and losing to the Commanders, when you were looking at your schedule to start the season, you said Patriots, Commanders, Panthers, 3 wins. Now you've already given away 2 of those. And we talk about in the NFL how the margins are so small. Well, you've already created 2 games for yourself that you have to make up somewhere else on the schedule. Not saying they're not capable of doing it. They absolutely are. But now you've got to go win 2 games that you weren't expecting to win. And that's going to be a tall task when you're expecting to win as many games as the Bengals are expecting to win. So, yeah, I think if they lose this game, I think it's going to be real bad. I don't know. I don't think there's any scenario that they fire Zach Taylor because, I mean, Marvin Lewis had a job there for how many years?
Forever.
Just not. Forever. The Bengals are too cheap to do it and hope that they find another good coach. They got lucky finding Zach Taylor, and they got lucky that he wants to be there. So I don't think they necessarily fire Zach Taylor, but it starts getting hot and heavy if they are 0-4 with a loss to the Carolina Panthers. So I feel like they got to have this. I think they know they got to have this, and I think they will. But you're not thinking that?
Now, Cincinnati may win this game. 4.5 points.
So I haven't seen it yet. You're betting that it's a field goal game. I think that's generous. Let's not forget how badly the Panthers lost the first 2 weeks.
All right. So bad.
Final morning game, Jaguars and Texans, and then we will take a little quick commercial break and be right back to run through the second half of the day. Jags at Texans. The Jags absolutely reeling. Doug Peterson looks like he does not want to be there. I had one of my coworkers who is a Jags fan. Yes, they exist. Come into my office the other day. I apologized to him for embarrassing him on national television. And then I said to him, let me ask you a real question right now. At what point do you start listening to offers for Trevor Lawrence?
Who's going to offer for Trevor Lawrence right now? Miami?
I think a lot of people.
After they paid him?
Yes. Now, I'm not talking about multiple first-round picks here. What I'm saying is, so what I said, the scenario I presented to him is, if somebody offered you 2 2s for Trevor Lawrence, would you take it? See? Did you see the look on your face? That is exactly right. There's a price for everything. Don't forget it, okay? So, and that works both ways, right?
Well, hold on. 2 2s from what team?
Well, but
is it a back half of the draft team or front half of the draft team? Because that would make the difference for me.
So, but then, you can go back and say a 1 and a 2, right? And does that change your mind? Right. It does. Of course it does. So if it's a back half of the draft team, say it's a 1 and a 2. And if it's a front half of the draft team, say it's a 2 and 2. But what I'm getting at is there's absolutely a price. And so what if the Vikings, and this is what I said to him, is like, think about Trevor Lawrence with Kevin O'Connell. Think about Trevor Lawrence with Kevin Stefanski. Think about Trevor Lawrence with Sean McVay. How much better do you feel about Trevor Lawrence in any one of those scenarios, right? Those guys have shown the ability to rebuild quarterbacks, specifically Sean McVay. And that type of offense that they all come from, that Shanahan tree that they all come from, is very quarterback friendly. And so a kid who is clearly talented, has shown he can play in the league. I mean, don't forget, he's won a playoff game, right? Huge comeback against the Chargers, went to Kansas City, gave them all that they could handle that year.
Every little bit, yeah.
I don't think he's total garbage. I think he's shook right now, right? Like I think his head's messed up a little bit, and I think Jaguars are a bad situation for him. Hello, Sam Darnold and
Baker,
Smith and
everybody. Yeah.
Baker Mayfield leaving terrible organizations, going to better ones and finding success. If I had told you if what is happening this year in Jacksonville happened last year and they were ready to give up on Trevor Lawrence, if instead of trading for Justin Fields, the Steelers had traded for Trevor Lawrence, look at your face.
That could be a team.
Just think about what that really is. And so I'm not out on Trevor Lawrence, but the Jags are a disaster. They're playing the Houston Texans, who are going to be around in their division a long time. How bad does it have to get before you start listening to offers from teams for Trevor Lawrence?
Just to clarify, Trevor Lawrence's contract has a no trade clause, so you'd have to break through that. It'd have to be somewhere Trevor Lawrence wants to go, which at this point could be anywhere.
Right. Yeah. I was going to say, if you're trading him to one of those teams who are going to help him get back to being himself. I mean, you're talking about number one recruit coming out of high school, number one overall pick. The kid has talent. There is zero question about it. Now, the leadership,
$142 million guaranteed by Jacksonville, that may be an issue.
Doesn't matter. It's a going rate. It's the going rate. And you've seen teams like the Denver Broncos eat money to move on, right? Like the thing about those cap penalties is if you are going to eat money, two things. One, if you get a rookie quarterback contract, it doesn't matter. So it's again, same like we bring up Shador, we bring up Carson Beck again. If you end up sucking so bad that you're going to be at the top of the draft and you're going to try with one of them instead, doesn't matter if you're eating whatever, $70 million, because that would be the price that you would be paying a premier quarterback. So it's exactly what the Broncos did this year. That being said,
2 2s doesn't do it for me. A 1 and a 2, plus knowing that you're going to suck this year and have a nice 1 and a 2 of your own.
That being said, the maximum cap penalty that you take in these situations is 2 years. And that's if you choose to split it up.
Yeah.
And so, how long does it take to get out from an awful, what'd you say it was? 6-year contract, 7-year contract? 2 years. 5? Yeah. Well, but on top of what he's got currently.
Oh, yeah, 6.
So 6 or 7. What does it take to get out of a terrible 7-year commitment? Takes 2 years. That's fair. It's just an interesting conversation, I think, that's about to happen in Jacksonville, because I do think the team is more talented than that. They're catching 5.5 down in Houston. So I threw out some crazy hypotheticals and we talked about crazy scenarios and we never talked about the game. 5.5, who do you like? Who do you want? What's your thoughts on the game?
In Houston, I'm sure Jacksonville had some storm-related shenanigans this week that may shake up the players a little bit. Travel may be a little bit more difficult. I'm going to take Houston. Yeah, minus 5.5. I can live with that. I think Houston needs to put it together because something hasn't looked quite right there. They've been doing okay, and they've been playing well at times. Jacksonville has not. Other than the first 40 minutes of the Miami game, Jacksonville has not looked like a team that you worry about. And then obviously what the Bills did to them last week, they got worked. That's embarrassing. You'd like to think Jacksonville's going to come out swinging. I just don't think they have the dogs for this race.
The worst thing that happened to the Jaguars for this week's game is that the Texans got absolutely blasted last week. And they are going to be focused and they're going to come in hungry, and it's a home game for them. And like you said, the 5.5 is fine. I'll take Houston. I think they're going to obliterate this Jaguars team. In fact, if you're going for highest score or lowest score, that might be the game that I'm looking at. Because it could be another blowout for the Jags.
I also think Aluakon's out for the Jags, and he's their tackling machine. So I just don't see any way Jacksonville comes out of there with a win.
Like I said, we've talked a lot about the Jags but there's something to be said for being up against it. You know what I mean? And they very much are against it. So if these guys love Doug Peterson and really want to try to save his job, guess what? Now's the time. All right, we're going to take a little quick commercial break here. We'll do the commercial question reset. Don't forget, if you have fantasy questions, betting questions, Survivor, whatever, throw them in the chat and we will talk about them on the other side. And then we'll run through the afternoon games and the night games as well. On the other side, thanks for watching. Okay. So our commercial question today. I had one and I scrapped it for this one, which you made me think of as we were discussing earlier. You woke up at what time today?
4:45.
That's disgusting. Like, it's literally gross. I don't know if you like it or not. I know most people that wake up at that time don't do so voluntarily. Right? Like, your body just kind of wakes you up and that's what it is. So I don't want to know what time you like waking up, because you might have found a way for the routine to work for you and so on and so forth. So 4:45 is fine. But ideally, if you could wake up at any time, what time would you actually want to wake up?
That's a good question. I spent years running restaurants where I was up late, not sleeping much, if at all. I got to be honest. I think 6 a.m. is perfect. People aren't there. It's not hot yet. The sun's just starting to come up. I mean, barely at this point. It's really like 7:30. But during the week, you can get to the gym. It's not super busy. You can be productive before everybody else is awake. With my work, most of the stuff I do is kind of based on East Coast time. So I'm kind of in sync with that. So it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference too.
Before 5 o'clock doesn't do much for me. There's not a huge benefit there. 5:30 is okay. I'd say 6 o'clock is good because you're still up early enough to get a bunch of shit done before anybody else is around.
So if you had your choice, the time that you could wake up and be blissfully happy and your schedule worked out and everything was perfect, you'd say 6 a.m.?
Yeah.
Oh, just put a fat cork in it. I mean,
I've only made it to 6 a.m. maybe a dozen times this year.
Do you know what's funny about it is the way that you talk? And listen, I did a morning show at one point. Welcome back, by the way. If you were out on commercial, the commercial question is, if everything could be perfect, if your job worked out and everything you wanted to get done, you could get done, and you woke up feeling refreshed, if everything was perfect, what time of day would you actually like to wake up? And David here said 6 a.m. To be clear, I've done a morning show before. I've been up at 4:30 every day. I do know what it's like to get like that before everybody's awake stuff done. It is a good feeling, right? Like, it's a little bit of like covert opsy feeling. Like, here I am getting all this stuff done and nobody even knows what's happening. A little sleeper action. But I feel the same way about nighttime. Like, I feel like I can get so much done between 8 p.m. and midnight that other people they're totally useless.
Yeah.
I mean, most people are on their couch just foaming at the mouth at that point. And that is when I am balls deep in editing a clip or something like that and getting stuff done that other people aren't productive during those hours. So it's interesting because I feel the same way about that. My answer is I always feel guilty when I sleep past noon. That's my answer to you. So if I could, wake up and be perfectly happy and it works for my job and everything like that, I'd say like 10:30. Right. Half your day is over by that point.
Correct.
All right. Afternoon games. Let's fly through these a little bit here. Commanders and Cardinals, both teams I think that are better than people thought that they were. And unfortunately, I think Vegas is catching on too quick because every year there's that one team that I can bet on all season that they're
Should have been
getting
Washington.
lines because they're good before somebody realizes that they're good. I think the Cardinals are a better team than people think that they are. I think 1 and 2 is tough for them. And then the Commanders 2-1. Was that a coming out party for Jaden Daniels on Monday Night Football?
Big shout out to the Commanders for last week. I had a good feeling about them. I liked the way they were playing. Jaden Daniels. I know Sturls and I talked about Jaden Daniels on the show for a good long while last week, and I put a good amount of money on the Commanders to win it, both on the spread and the money line, and they hooked me up last week. I felt real good about that game.
Who do you like this week?
I'm riding the hot hand. I'm going with the Commanders.
Listen, easy rookie betting mistake here. There is no such thing as the hot hand
fallacy. I know.
Fat and happy are two words that come to mind when we're talking about the Commanders. Are they going to be satisfied with being a league darling for a week after knocking off the Bengals on Monday Night Football? It's one of the hardest things for good young quarterbacks and good young teams to do is to consistently win. It's why you see so much turnover in the NFL. And so this feels like a fat and happy game for me. I will lay the 3.5 points. I'm going to take the Cardinals at home. And like I said, I think that team's a little bit better than people give them credit for. So I don't like that it's with the hook 3.5, but I will lay the 3.5 points and take the Cardinals.
And I'm not sure Washington wins this game, but they're going to keep it close. They're going to keep it competitive. If it was 2.5, 3, yeah, maybe. I'm not here for 3.5. I actually think Washington's going to pull this one out. But I'm going to take the spread. I'm going to go with Washington plus 3.5. Give it to me.
Okay, Patriots plus 10.5 in San Francisco. San Jose, whatever. You know what I mean. Facing the 49ers. I have talked about it in several different shows, several different places. I'm sure one of them was here. Everything was going to catch up with the Niners at some point, right? There's just too much that they're going through. Doesn't mean I don't think that they're a good team. Doesn't mean I don't think they'll be fine. This season is not about September for the 49ers. The season is about February for the 49ers. You got Ayuk wearing the wrong color shorts at practice and Shanahan wanting to make it. But like, it is like you're not different now that you got paid. And I think that was what was going through Kyle's head when he was screaming at him. Well, he was telling him to change his short color, right? Like, you're not different than everybody else. I don't care if you think you are. Go put on the uniform and come back out to practice and let's work. And
be a team player.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was a point he wanted to make. And like some people are like, that's a weird hill to die on. I get that it's a weird hill to die on. But if you don't do it with something small at the beginning, it starts avalanching into something bigger and bigger 100%. And bigger and bigger. You're not different. You're not special. I don't care that you just got your money. Go put on the right color shorts and come back out and get ready to work. But yeah, everything I felt like everything was going to catch them at the beginning of the year, and it feels like it has. CMC is a problem. Might be worse than we think it is.
Way worse, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's way worse than we first thought, and it still might be worse than we think it is. Debo,
sorry, fantasy owners.
He'll be back at some point. I trust Debo, so I think he'll be back at some point, be healthy. Not super worried about that. You got a discontented Brandon Ayuk, and it just feels like there's too much for this team to have to overcome. And then you look at that and you say, they gave that game away last week.
They really did.
They gave it away. So even with all those problems, they're still right there. You know what I mean? Like, that's how good of a team they really are.
10 points, though.
Which So I've made my argument for the other side. Now I'm going to tell you who I'm picking. I'm picking the Patriots. Listen, man, the Patriots play a real 1980s style of football. And we're going to run the ball and we're going to play defense and we're going to hope that you don't get out too far on us and that we can make some kind of crazy play at the end to win. And it has kept them close in I should say every game. I mean, it's been 3 games. In every game except the last one, right? The Jets got away from them and they don't have the horses to come back. But I don't think the Niners are going to get away from them. I think there's too much going on right now. And so it's going to be an ugly, gross, I don't want to watch this game, but don't you dare, and here's my rule, this is what David was referencing, don't you dare tell an NFL team that they're 2 full scores worse than another team. I mean, that is insulting. It almost never happens, right? That's very, very rarely do we get double-digit spreads in the NFL. I just think there's a pride factor here. I think the Niners are beat up. Give me the 10.5. Give me New England. Even if it wasn't my rule, I'd still take the 10.5 here.
100%.
That's it. That's all the insight that you have for
our. We talked about it while you were taking time off in Mexico last week. The injuries for San Francisco to their star players is super impactful. Some of their play as of late has been sloppy, to say the least. New England, like you said, old school smash mouth football, run the ball, play smart, keep it tight, keep it close. It's like somebody who plays poker and they fold, and then when they think they've got it, they come at you. 10 points, 10.5 points, double-digit spread, that's tough for me. And you'd like to think that, that plus 10 for New England, plus 10.5, maybe you put a couple dollars on that. Maybe you feel good about covering that spread. Now, would you put any money on the money line here? Do you actually think that New England could win the game?
Could they? Sure. Yeah. I think any NFL team could win any week. I don't think it's likely. Now, if the Niners had not given away that game last week, I would say, okay, if you want to get frisky here and put $2 or $5 on the money line there, I don't blame you for that, because it just feels like things are crumbling a little bit over there. But they'll be paying enough attention that they don't drop this one to the Patriots, I think.
All right.
Okay, Browns at Raiders. Who are the Browns? It's just they are such a talented roster, and we've said over and over that it's just the quarterback-driven
league
problem. Yeah. But I mean, a little bit Jekyll and Hyde. One week they look great, one week they don't. They are minus 2.5 points in Vegas versus the Raiders. Raiders, man, should really be 0-3, right? Like, they really should have lost that game to Baltimore. Find a way to come back and win. Feels like Devontae Adams does not want to be there.
My hamstring. I gotta sit down and not play for this team ever again.
Right. It feels like he's gonna get traded and that hamstring's magically gonna feel better. So Browns at Raiders. Browns minus 2.5. What are you thinking, David?
Like you said, the Browns are a super talented team. That defense has some real studs. I really like the defense. I don't trust Deshaun Watson. But you look at Las Vegas and you go, you've got a couple of names, Devontae Adams, one of them, who could be a huge game changer, and he's not playing. I feel like I got to go Cleveland here, but I really don't want to bet on Cleveland at all this year because they are inconsistent in the most important times. When they need to burn some clock or when they need a first down, they're not getting it. When they need a stop, they're not getting it. When they need a quarterback who's just a game manager, they're not getting it. Who do you trust more at this point? I don't think the Raiders are as good as their record shows. And no Devontae Adams, I think I got to go Cleveland here.
Like you said, I hate it. I hate everything about it. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to bet it. I don't like the line. I don't like how it all sets up. I think the Browns are going to win this game, but there's just something telling me home dogs in the NFL, man. Like that is something that is tough to bet against. So I'm going to take the 2.5 points. I'm going to take the Raiders. I don't even really have a good explanation for you. Gardner Minshew does crazy fucking things. Like that's like, I don't know. I don't know what else to say. I hate the line. I hate everything about this game. I'll take Raiders plus 2.5. And it's really more of a flyer than anything else. I'll take the home dog.
Fair enough.
All right. Your afternoon game of the day. You're after your game of the afternoon window. Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it. Chiefs minus 7.5 in LA to take on the Chargers. And for a dynasty team, I don't think they're gonna like take over SoFi. Do you think so? No. And everybody takes over SoFi. Everybody takes over SoFi. And I just don't.
Chargers.
Well, yeah. I don't see that happening for the Chiefs. Like, I don't feel like there's going to be a stadium full of Chiefs fans. Chiefs laying 7.5 on the road versus the 2-1 Chargers. Sounds like Herbert's going to play. That was the report last night. We'll see if that ends up actually happening, but who you got?
So I actually bet this one 2 days ago when the spread was +8, and I took it. I don't think the Chiefs are as good as their record. They've had some really lucky outcomes. You could say that the uncalled pass interference last week was worse than the called pass interference against Cincinnati the week before. I think that's kind of a sad argument that doesn't do much for me. But I don't think they're quite as good as their record. They've come out lucky a couple times. The Chargers have played pretty well, okay, not great. They're at home, 8 points, 7.5 now. Was a little too enticing for me. And I'd really, really love to see the Chargers in first place in the division, even if it's for a week, with that tiebreaker over KC. I would
not
love
your
that.
heart, your head. Bet with your head, not your heart. Didn't we learn that from our boy Pat, who is certainly not listening once again?
No.
Listen, the Chiefs are notorious for not covering. In this dynasty that they have, they never cover. Ever. It's crazy.
Squeaking out wins with a really good kicker.
So I'll take the Chargers. I'll take the 7.5, and this will be the one time that the Chiefs will cover.
My only
I don't
concern
think the Chargers
here
are actually that good of a team, but I think they have good coaching, and I think that what they're going to try to do is to slow this game down and try to keep it close. And I think the Chiefs can be had that way. So yes, I'll take the Chargers. I think Justin Herbert's a good quarterback. People think I'm crazy for that. I think he's a good quarterback. Yes, I know he hasn't won a playoff game. If he's going to play, I'm going to assume he's healthy enough to play. And I just like the combination of him and Harbaugh. Not that I'm a huge Harbaugh fan, but he's just going to make it easier on him because that's the way he wants to run his football team. He wants to run the ball. He wants to play defense, wants to be fundamentally sound. That's going to make it easier on your quarterback. So I don't think the Chargers are great, but I'm going to take the 7.5 points and say that the game will be within a touchdown. All right. So these Monday night games, they're okay.
Whoa.
Do you want to save the Sunday night game for last, or you want to go in order?
No, let's go in order.
Oh, he wants to go in order. All right. Here it is. Bills, Ravens. I think without question it's the game of the weekend. I could be wrong because I have rose-colored Bills red-colored glasses on. But Bills getting 2.5, heading to Baltimore. Now listen, this is a Sunday night football game every year. They do a Sunday night football game where they primetime game where they wear all black. They make a big deal about it. They got a name for it. It's like their thing. Their backs are against the wall. Yes, they beat the Cowboys last week, and it was the most unconvincing win that you've ever seen in your entire life because they did what they did to the Raiders. They got out to a huge lead and almost blew it a second time. And so
again,
I think it's absolutely in their heads. I think they're going to come out hungry. I think it's going to be an interesting game. You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
No, go for it. I'm pulling up the injury report because it's going to feature heavily in my review.
That's interesting to me because it matters almost none at all to me. So here are my thoughts on this game. The Bills are hurting up the middle of their defense. They have been playing well still, despite the fact that they are hurting up the middle of their defense. But they haven't been tested the way that this Ravens team is going to test them, both with the multiplicity of options that they have to run the ball down your throat, whether it's Derrick Henry or Lamar Jackson or Patrick Richard. I don't know if it's Richard or Ricard, and I kind of melded the two there, and I'm fine with it. Fine with it. No, I'm going with Richard. So the Bills, the interior of the Bills defense hasn't been stressed the way that the Ravens can stress your defense. Conversely, I don't think the Ravens defense has been stressed the way that the Bills offense can stress your defense. Right. I think Josh Allen is a dude, and I think he's in a groove right now. He made a comment to one of the Buffalo reporters the other day. Buffalo reporter pointed out a throw, and he was like, man, that was a hell of a throw. This was like off camera. And apparently Allen was like, yeah, I was really feeling it there. Whew. God bless the NFL if that man is really feeling it for a whole season. I mean,
Terminator Josh.
I mean, Terminator Josh is going to put them into a sausage meat grinder. So it's really interesting to me. We came into week one not knowing what this Bills team was going to look like, if they were going to have it. They clearly do. Their two new coordinators and coaching has been excellent, and I hope that continues, of course. But it all comes down to 17, and if 17 is feeling it, I don't care if it's Lamar Jackson or even Patrick Mahomes. Like they can beat anybody. I mean, they can beat the tar out of anybody. Here's what David was referencing when we talked about this game a little bit earlier. Why are the Bills getting 2.5 points? It makes zero sense. And when something doesn't make sense to me, it's because Vegas knows something that I don't know. And I don't know what I don't know. But Vegas is giving the Bills 2.5 points. They just won by 37. They won by 37 on Monday Night Football. And Vegas is giving them 2.5 points? Something's going on. Something's fishy. It smells. That's bait. That smells like shit.
And you're taking it.
I don't know what they know that we don't, but I think if you look at the bets and look at the money, my guess would be most is coming in on the Bills plus 2.5. And you're going to have a Brandon Aubrey missed field goal type situation here where the Ravens cover and they win and cover, and I pull my hair out. So, as we say every week, I don't bet the Bills games because I feel like I look at it with rose-colored glasses and I don't want to have my betting colored like that. If I was just looking at this game objectively and betting it, I would love the Bills getting 2.5, and I would hate that I loved it. And I would probably try to fade it and bet the Ravens to win.
4.5.
Yeah, I would. No, I would bet the Ravens minus the 2.5. Yeah, I bet them to win. terrifies me as a Bills fan. Absolutely terrifies me. So there you go. You can do with that information what you want as the betting public. If I was betting, I love the Bills plus 2.5, and I would bet the Ravens minus 2.5 because something's wrong. Something's up with this line.
All right. I'm going to take a different approach. I was looking at some of the injuries this week. Nothing new really for the Bills, which means Teron Johnson still out, forearm, working his way back, and Terrell Bernard out. We knew that, but he was seen in a red non-contact jersey this week, so hopefully he's back here shortly. But on the Ravens side, cornerback Jalen Amore Davis out. Michael Pierce, their nose tackle, that big body dude in the middle, doubtful. Now, here's the important part. You talked about the Bills' defense in the middle, struggling, still having success, but struggling. I don't disagree. I worry about our interior offensive line. I worry a little bit about our run defense, and I worry about them carving up the middle of the field because that's the one place they're good in the pass game where you go, you've got a giant tight end and he can run after the catch. Here's why I'm a little less concerned. Andrew Voorhees, their offensive lineman, doubtful. Tyler Linderbaum, their center, questionable. He's had some injuries recently with the knee. If your center can't go, that could be a bad snap, a bad exchange, overshooting, undershooting, whatever. Now, if anybody can recover from that, it's probably Lamar Jackson because he'll catch the ball and then do a triple backflip out and then run for 30 yards. But then you keep going and there's more injuries that I guess in my opinion, like Roquan Smith has an ankle injury. He was a full participant, but we'll see what actually happens. And then Daniel Faalele, their offensive tackle, has a hip injury and is expected to play, but not be great. Now, you have a tackle against Greg Rousseau or Von Miller, who's showing his old burst again. If your hip, where you need to get low and push up, isn't 100% and they work your outside, or if it's the other hip, work your inside, I've got some questions. And the Bills have done a nice job maintaining a pocket pressure where the front's pushing up with Ed Oliver and Daquan Jones, and you're getting, the blitz last week with Jamarcus Ingram, and the defensive ends maintaining that pocket pressure and not allowing kind of anybody to spin out.
Well, and see, that's the one thing I'm not worried about, is because that's what the Bills did pay for, right? The way that you don't let him escape isn't by making sure your ends don't go too deep. Yes, that's important. But yeah, you got to push up the middle, and that's what the Bills paid for. They paid out Ed Oliver, they paid Daquan Jones, and the idea is that when he's trying to step up to get out, there's no room to do it. He's going to run right into a defensive tackle. So I'm not concerned about Lamar escaping and scrambling in this game. What I'm more concerned about personally is the power run game from them.
Correct. But with offensive line injuries, I think you're going to get a little less push than they've been seeing the last 2 weeks. And I think that favors the Bills. So I would take the Bills here.
But it stinks, doesn't it?
It feels weird, and I don't love it. But I also didn't love last week. Where you're going, Jacksonville. I was in London. I watched that game and went, fuck. Yeah.
I liked last week. Listen, I thought they needed to make sure they were paying attention because that Jaguars team I thought was going to come out desperate, but I like the Bills in that one. This one it stinks to me. It's fishy. All right, another doubleheader on Monday night. That's not an actual doubleheader. They want that red zone feel where you got 2 games on at one time, and you're open up a window with the team in the red zone, and you have two games on your screen at once. Real quickly before we get into the games, last week we had to go through it with our team, so of course we didn't like it because we don't like interruptions watching our game. But now that you get to watch it as a fan that isn't caring particularly about either game, is it something that intrigues you as a football viewer?
So I understand what Disney's doing here. Disney owns ESPN and ABC. I think they're trying to the total is more than the sum of its parts. Get people who would watch either game to kind of watch both games and then finish the first game and then switch over to the second game. I get what they're doing. I don't personally love it. Also, the 5:30 start for the Bills last week was kind of a weird time here in Denver. I don't love it, but if I'm watching, yeah, why not? Doesn't bother me that much. But when it's my team, I'm like, no, don't do that.
Well, and the fact that you don't have the option. So, like, red zone, if I'm watching an 11 o'clock game and I want to watch just the 11 o'clock game, I just turn on the 11 o'clock game and watch it. But if I want to watch red zone, I turn on red zone. You don't have the option on the Monday night. And so, like, if I'm watching the Bills game and the Commanders are in the red zone and they put me in a double screen, I'm in a double screen. There's nothing, I can't choose to watch just the Bills game. Right. And I think that's why it bothers me so much. I'm not a big fan of it. All right. Titans getting 2.5 headed to Miami. Tyler Huntley been named the starters for the Dolphins. I mean, Tyler Huntley is.
I like Tyler Huntley.
Skylar Thompson, yeah.
For sure. What he did with Baltimore in that playoff run 2 years ago when Lamar had the ankle injury, he acquitted himself very well.
Let's not get overexcited here. Just
for a backup quarterback when the expectation was Lamar Jackson, and he did enough. He kept drives alive with his legs. He didn't take stupid hits. I don't think he threw many interceptions. So he played a fairly conservative game, but kept the team moving forward when their star quarterback was out. More than you're ever going to say about Skylar Thompson, especially this year. That hit last week.
He almost beat the Bills in a playoff game, so let's not get too crazy here. Titans catching 2.5 points, headed down to Miami. For me, anybody that's getting points while playing the Dolphins, I'm right now without Tua, I'm going to take. So I'm going to take the 2.5 points. I don't think Tennessee's quite as bad as they appear to be. They almost beat the Bears. Now listen, I'm not saying they're good. I just don't think they're as bad. People are saying maybe worst team in the league. I'm just not there. They almost beat the Bears. They should have beat the Bears, right?
Should have beat the Jets.
I'm getting there. Will Levis makes a dumb mistake. They lose the game. Should have beat the Jets. Will Levis makes a dumb mistake. They lose the game, right? So, can the Dolphins capitalize on a dumb mistake that Will Levis makes? Maybe. But I'll take anybody getting points versus the Dolphins right now. I do not think that is a very good team. I couldn't believe the spread versus the Seahawks last week. It was free money if you were asking me. I'll take the Titans here just on the principle of I'll take points versus the Dolphins.
I think Tyler Huntley comes out and plays okay, gets the ball to star receivers, hands the ball off to powerful, fast running backs. I'm actually taking Miami here.
Ooh. Did you throw up in your mouth a little bit when you said that?
I did twice. Tastes like sadness.
And then our last game, the better game on Monday night, no doubt, Seahawks and Lions. Seahawks 3-0. And listen, I don't think they've really proved anything, but beating the teams you're supposed to beat important in the NFL.
That's who's on your schedule. Can't do anything about it.
They're getting 3.5 points headed to Detroit. Something feels off with Detroit for me.
It does. Aiden Hutchinson looks great. I hope he has a great year, but that team doesn't look like the Detroit we saw last year. It doesn't look like the Detroit we expected this year. I actually bet this one 2 days ago and got Seattle +4.
It doesn't mean that it won't click in at some point
for
the Lions. Incredibly talented team. I like their coaches. Doesn't mean that it won't click in for them. But something feels off. And so I feel like if they get this win, it'll be by a field goal. And so if I'm getting 3.5 points, I'm betting the number here. Feels like they're going to eke it out. Now, this could be the game where they that they find it, that they do turn it on and they win by 2 touchdowns. But I think if they win this game, they're going to eke it out. I think McDonald's defense will keep it close. And I don't know, Geno Smith. I mean, do what you want with him. People are like, "Oh, Geno Smith, he's playing so well. He's actually good." I'm like, no, I don't. I don't know if I want to go there. Yeah. But can he run an offense efficiently? Sure. I mean, he can Ryan Fitzpatrick you to death. You know what I mean? So with those receivers, with his running backs, I think that Seattle team is formidable. So I'll take the 3.5 points.
I took it at 4, but only thing that would scare me, the only kryptonite I could see is if Detroit signed a last-minute contract with IKM and Polly.
You make a punching Geno Smith joke here?
And again, I actually
feels like an inappropriate way to close our podcast. I got to be honest with you.
So I'm going to circle back and say I really like what the Lions' Aiden Hutchinson is doing. I think, he had the game with 5 or 5.5 sacks, which is insanity. Watching him just smother Baker Mayfield, and you're like, okay. The rest of that team, it's kind of like Houston. You see the names, you add it up on paper, and you go, I should be afraid of this team. And what Detroit's done and what Houston's done, you're going, something feels weird. Now that defense can hit you in the mouth. Jahmyr Gibbs can hit you in the mouth on offense. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. You've got talent. But again, like Houston, they haven't put it together consistently. So when I saw Seattle +4 a couple days ago, I jumped all over that.
It's too bad because I've got 2 friends that are big Lions fans, Howard, who we see at the bar, and then I just made friends with a guy down in Mexico who lives here, who's a big Lions fan. And I am just consistently betting against their team. I mean, full on rooting for the Lions to, I guess, not lose because they can win by a field goal or less. But
right.
Sorry, guys. I love you both. All right. That'll wrap us up for the YOR NFL Pregame Show. Appreciate you for jumping in. Make sure you like, subscribe, follow. I don't know where you're watching us. Is it on Twitter? X? Is it on Twitch? Is it on YouTube? Wherever you are, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a follow. Appreciate you for jumping in. So ready for Sunday football. Any last thoughts here, David?
I wish we played Thursday night every week so that I could watch the games carefree. We have to watch an entire day of football until we get to the Bills game. So that's exactly what I'm going to do.
He's going to go for like 3 runs today because he's so nervous.
Probably.
You're disgusting. Everybody hates you. Stop doing that kind of stuff to us. All right. Stop making us feel bad about who we are as people, David. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we will catch you all next time. What is next time? What's the next time I'm going to see y'all? I'm going to try to do a Broncos podcast tomorrow night, so if you're one of our Broncos followers, be on the lookout for that. And then Sturls and I do our Bills podcast on Tuesday. And then, of course, we'll all 3 be back. Well, maybe all 3 be back next week for the YOR NFL Pregame Show, 8 o'clock Mountain, 10 o'clock Eastern. We'll see you next week, and I'll just leave with a Go Bills.
Go Bills.